Hello. In this video, I want to talk about practice exam strategy. In particular, how can we get the most out of our practice exams? Practice exams are the final step before taking the real exam. And they're in many ways the most important one. They're our final chance to solidify everything and put us in position to do a great job in the real exam. So I want to talk about some practice exam strategy, but first, before I get to that, I want to tell you about two students. And this is a story I've seen a lot on online discussion forums. In the final 2 weeks before the exam, so those final 14 days, student A works really hard. There's 28 practice exams. That's 2 practice exams a day. So they go online and they brag about how much they're studying and how they're working really, really hard. Student B, on the other hand, only does 5 practice exams and doesn't even do a great job on all of them, just fails all 5 of them. But then when it comes to exam day, student A fails while student B passes. And then student A goes on the online discussion forum and talks about how unfair the exam is and all these things. But really the difference is their approach that they took. Right? How come student B did better than student A? Student B didn't do too many exams. Student B did the right number, in particular left himself enough time to review the practice exams and learn from his mistakes. And that's really the key to passing. A lot of people tell you the key to passing an actuarial exam is to do as many problems as you can. That's not quite true. You want to do as many problems as you can learn from. And that's what student B is doing right. In order to learn from things, you have to review your mistakes. If you aren't reviewing your mistakes, you aren't learning from them. Student A is spending so much time doing practice exams that there's no time for student A to learn from his mistakes. Also, if you aren't identifying your weak areas, you aren't focusing your energies efficiently. If you do these practice exams, say, okay, I'm really great at finding the expected value of a continuous distribution, but I'm terrible with questions about Poisson problems, you should spend a bunch of time working on some Poisson distribution problems. And you want to focus your energies efficiently on your weak areas. So how long should it take you to do a 30-question, 3-hour practice exam? The obvious answer of 3 hours is wrong. 3 hours doesn't give you time to review the solutions. It doesn't give you time to learn from your mistakes. It doesn't give you time to redo problems that you missed. 3 days is actually a much better guess than 3 hours. On the first day, you could spend 3 hours taking the exam and finding out your score. Then on the next day, you could review some solutions of the problems that you missed and also the problems that you found difficult. Maybe there was an easier way of doing them. And day 3, you can redo the problems that you missed to learn from your mistakes. This is the key day because this is when you learn from your mistakes and make sure you don't repeat them on the exam day. You could even spend 4 days on an exam. On the 4th day, after you figure out what problems you missed, work a bunch of practice problems in the weak areas you found. Maybe I missed a bunch of problems that involve double expectation. I can go back and I can look at that. Now, let's talk about these days one at a time. Day 1, let's talk about the mechanics of the practice exam. Now, it's a practice exam, so it's not the real one. How is it different from the real exam? Well, there's a lot less pressure on you psychologically when you take the practice exam. So what you want to do to prepare yourself as well as you can for the real exam is to try to make that practice exam realistic. I want to make it as realistic as possible. I don't want to use formula sheets. I want to use a strict timeline, which if you use our online CBT form the way you should, the computer will do that for you. And you don't get to pause the timer for bathroom breaks in the real exam. In fact, in the real exam, you even have to check back in. So you might want to give yourself a 2-minute penalty whenever you go to the bathroom. One thing I would recommend doing on the practice exam, but not the real exam, is one thing to make this simple exam a little bit harder, a little bit more stressful, and also something you can learn a little bit more from, is to record on scratch paper how long you spend on each problem. This will help you identify which problems can you do quickly and which problems take you a long time. And we'll talk about why that's important in just a little bit. All right, now, before we get into the exact strategy of how you do the exam, let's talk about the rules. What are the scoring rules? There are 30 questions given in 3 hours. On average, you need 71% to pass. This varies slightly between students because everyone gets slightly different questions. You have a lower pass mark if your question is a little bit harder. You have a higher pass mark if your question is a little bit easier to try to keep it fair. But let's just say 71% is our goal. All the questions have the same value. There are no style points in the exam. There's no bonus points for getting a hard question right. And getting an easy question right is worth just as much. So what you really want to do is do really, really well on those easy questions. Say you can score 85% in the easiest 80% of the questions, and you have to completely punt on the hardest 20%. What happens? What's your score? Well, 85 times 80% is 68%. And then it's multiple choice. You have a 1 in 5 chance of getting the other 20% right. So on average, you'll get a fifth of them for a final score of 72%, which is passing. And so the point is I want to focus on the easy topics, especially now that the exam's right around the corner, and also the more commonly tested problems. I don't necessarily want to spend my last time right before the exam worrying about things like Chebyshev's inequality, right? If I see a Chebyshev inequality problem in a practice exam and I miss it, I entirely don't care because it's not going to show up in the real exam either. All right, so how can we focus on getting all these easy questions correct? That's the most important thing that we need to do. Well, the questions are in random order. The last few questions in the exam might be the easiest questions. When I took the exam, the easiest question was question number 30. The first few questions can be really hard questions. So what we want to do is we want to get through all the easier questions without running into any problems with time. I want to save my energy and save my other time for the harder problems. So what I do is a triage strategy. On the first pass through the exam, I'm going to answer any question I can answer in less than 6 minutes. I have 3 hours for 30 problems. That averages 6 minutes per problem. In fact, I might even restrict this to just being less than 4 minutes. Any problem I can do really, really quickly. You know, easy peasy Venn diagram problem, or whatever else is quick for you. I'm going to mark questions I know how to do, but are going to take me longer to do. So anything involving a double integral, especially anything involving computing covariance where I have to do lots and lots of double integrals. I'm going to skip any question where I have absolutely no idea how to do it. All right, so that means I've gone through and I've gotten all my easy questions out of the way. Maybe I skip the first 5 questions. That's one of the advantages of doing practice exams, to get used to that. You know what? I skipped the first 5 questions, but that worked out okay for me on practice exams. It will work out okay for me on the real exam too. Then on my second pass through material, I'm going to review just marked questions. There's an option on the CBT format to just go through and only see the questions I marked. Well, that's why I marked the questions that I know how to do, but will take me a little bit longer. So on my second pass, I'll go through. I'll get those problems right. Between pass 1 and 2, hopefully I've answered 80% of the questions and gotten my 85% of the easiest 80 problems right. On my third pass, I'll try some of the harder problems if time is available. You know, maybe after reading the problem a second time, it'll be easier to me. Or if I don't know how to do a problem, but I know what some of the words mean, I can start writing down some equations related to that, and maybe that will help everything fall in place. Right? So I'll try those hard problems if I have time left. If I don't have time left, I'll guess. I'll make sure I answer everything. All right, now, our real big improvement comes from reviewing. So the next 2 days, I'm going to spend reviewing my things. What I would be tempted to do is, before looking at the solutions, simply redo the problems I missed with a formula sheet in hand. Right? Maybe that will help them. So maybe having these formulas would have helped me get this problem right. If so, that would be a great formula for me to memorize. Or maybe doing it the next day and sleeping on it helped my subconscious figure out some ideas, made a couple things gel and click a little bit better, and figured out some other ideas for that. If that's the case, that is actually the best possible scenario, because those are the ones that you will remember the best on the real exam and you'll improve on the most. And then after I redo those problems, I want to review the solutions to all the problems I missed. I also want to review solutions to problems that took me a long time. That's why I was recording how long it took me to do each problem. If I spent 8 minutes on a problem, there was almost certainly a faster way of doing it. And I should have looked at doing it that way. And so maybe there's a better approach that I could have used. Then on day 3, I'm going to redo all the problems that I missed or that I found hard. And the reason why I'm redoing them the next day is this is what's going to make me remember those solutions. If I redo it right after I looked at the solutions, it doesn't burn it into my memory quite as much as if I'm reviewing it the next day and I had a chance to forget some of the ideas. And I really have to think about what are these ideas going on that will really solidify it much more strongly in your mind. Although, if you only have time for 1 day for all the reviewing, certainly doing it right after you do the solutions is still fine. It still will help you. All right, so that's how we learn from our exams. I want to briefly mention what we did the last couple of days. The last couple of days before the actual exam, I want to do something somewhat productive. I want to do something that will help build my confidence so I'm not too nervous on the actual exam. And that sort of is a vague thing. It means different things to different people. Right? So some people like to memorize the last handful of formulas. Some people like to redo a practice exam that they already did. Since we already did it, we've seen the problems before, we'll probably have a good score. They'll help us feel good about ourselves. Some people say, okay, I know what my weak areas are. Let me just work on some problems from some important topic that's one of my weak areas to make me feel more confident about it. You know, whatever works for you or makes sense to you is what you should be doing. And then the most important thing is the night before the exam, you want to get a good night's sleep. Being well rested, being wide awake for the exam itself is worth more than any last-minute cramming is. Right? Math tests are hard, especially math tests that require doing a lot of word problems and thinking about things a lot. And being well rested for those makes a huge difference. All right, so you want to get a good night's sleep the night before the exam. You want to make sure you're well rested. And that's pretty much it. All right, good luck on your exam. I hope it goes well for you.